We're going to come on to our roll down exercise, something that is a little bit unique to Pilates and is working its way into other forms of exercise. And it's about trying to encourage all parts of our spine to take part in movement. Normally our body kind of prefers different places, and there is nothing wrong with that. But if we do it all the time, that's when we can develop some problems in that area. So it's recognizing that our spine starts all the way up by the base of our skull and finishes all the way down to our tailbone. And I'm going to show you what it's not. So this is not what a roll down is. So sometimes as we bend, we literally just stick our bottom out and we hinge, and we come back up and we come back up. And if you look at that again, you'll notice that my spine stays relatively still. So there really isn't any movement in my spine. So the roll down encourages us to have segmental movement, movements of each bone. It does not matter how far you go with a roll down. We all have our own degrees of flexibility. And like all of these exercises, it's important for you to check in with your body and make sure that everything is comfortable. Again, we're going to encourage those feet to be hip width apart and that slight softness in the knee. And as we roll down, we want our weight to stay centered rather than falling onto our toes or falling onto our heels. So I'm going to imagine someone is walking their fingertips down my spine, all the way down my spine. And I'm going to bend forwards from the top to the bottom. Throughout this, I'm going to be aware of trying to create a relaxation in my neck. And this can take time. When you first start, a lot of people are a little bit like this. So creating that softness. And there is a possibility to slide your hands down your leg if you find that more supportive. So from a Pilates point of view, it does go with breath work, but I'm going to leave that out for the moment and just show you the technique. My chin is going to roll onto my chest. I'm then going to imagine that I'm rolling down bone by bone. Bone by bone, keeping my weight centered. You can see I've got my fingers just gently sliding down my leg, just brushing down my leg. I'm just going to roll down bone by bone to my natural point of flexibility, allowing my arms to gently swing. And then when I come up, I'm going to think that my tailbone tucks under first, really stacking up. And then the small of my back, and then my mid back, and then my shoulder blades drop down and my head floats up tall into that lovely aligned standing position. I'll do that again. Feel free to join in when you want. This time I'll put the breath work in. We're going to breathe in to engage. We're going to breathe out. The chin is going to go onto my chest, keeping soft in the shoulders. Going to roll down bone by bone. Just rolling down bone by bone. Lovely softness through the upper body. As far as I naturally feel flexible, breathing in, engaging that deep core muscle, and then rolling up bone by bone by bone to come up into my standing position. I'd encourage you to practice that a couple more times. I'm going to go on to show a few different other techniques to check. If you're not sure, feel free to carry on watching this video or just pause and repeat what I've just done. So one way that you can check to see how you're rolling down is by using your hands. So if we go into that fold down where we keep our spine straight, quite quickly I squash my hands. Happens quite quickly. If we're doing a roll down, the last thing that happens is our hips moving. So we should feel this space for quite a long time. So if I stand slightly twisted, then you can see my hands. So if I roll down, I'm still feeling space through my hips. And this is my mid-back bending. And then as I start to come into my low back, my lumbar spine finishes its movement. And then the last part of the movement is a drop from my hips. Obviously, it's a bit harder to keep my shoulders soft, but I'm trying to be aware. And then when I come up, it's the reverse. So as my tailbone tucks under, the first thing that happens is that there's space through my hips, then my low back, then my middle of my spine, then my head, and then my neck. So it's a useful thing to practice for any of my clients that feel a bit clunky and it looks like this. They tend to move with their head and then they'll bend straight from here. So being aware that the last thing when we roll down to kind of feel like it's being squashed is through our hips. And the reverse, the first thing that opens up is this lower hip area. So that's one way to practice at home using those hands. The second way is to actually come against a door or a wall. I'm just going to slide this mat forwards. To do this, a lot of people need to obviously please make sure that your feet aren't going to slide. If we come straight up, we've got nowhere to go. So it's actually better to just walk your feet forwards a few centimetres. And the last part that peels away from the door or the wall is the lower back and the hips, and then the reverse happens. So head is against the wall, we're going to breathe in to engage, my chin goes down, and then it gives you a bit more feedback as you roll down bone. And if you feel that there's nowhere to move, you may need to walk your feet a bit further forward. And as I bend down, I can kind of feel my bottom sliding up the wall. Check that my hands and arms are relaxed, and then I can just tuck under. And as I do, I feel like my bottom is sliding down, then my low back, then my mid back, and then my shoulders, and then my head. Making sure that you're not dizzy. And for a lot of people, that really helps them have some feedback. And it's a very good place to start for your roll down practice. Gradually working away from the wall, away from using your hands, so that you can do a roll down in standing.